Wait, there. And we're still on TikTok. Hi, everybody. I'm on TikTok now. No, I'm not. I need to get off of Instagram and TikTok. I meant to be on X, but yeah, I don't know. X is something. And Twitch sucks, so the TikTok, I love you guys, but there are still people out there that are paranoid to join TikTok. I don't know what they think is going to happen. Somebody's going to jump out of the screen and, start waving a magic wand, and I don't know. The only thing weird I ever saw on TikTok, and I was looking around for shit, was somebody was in nothing but a pair of yellow trunks with some yellow horn goggles on that looks like something a kid would be swimming with, but, I don't know, from wherever the hell that cartoon that was from, and he had a yellow painted stick broom, and he was running around the house going wooga 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 wooga. I don't know, it probably got him some money, who knows, but God love him. God love him if it did. Really, I mean, hey, whatever gets you through it. Yeah, man. But TikTok is more to me, I keep trying to get people on to talk about what their favorite social media platforms are, but nobody ever wants to. So I've done a few talks on my own about my experiences with about 10 of them. Such as, I did it the other night on TikTok. I forget what they all are. Of course, it would be Facebook, it would be TikTok, Instagram, Lemon8, Blue Sky, Threads, Quora, and Reddit. They're kind of similar, and breaking down the similarities between the two is what I did, like with Threads, between Threads and Blue Sky, between Threads and Lemon8, between Lemon8 and Blue Sky, right? And their little subtle differences, right? And why my big bitch is not a bitch, but the thing that mystifies me is why each one of these sites I mentioned has about 2 or 3 issues they could fix. It has to do with bandwidth and, allowing video on and just weird shit as to why in this day and age, and I can't for the life of me believe that it would be a bandwidth issue in this day and age. I understand kind of maybe with Instagram, because Instagram and Threads are owned by Facebook. Okay, TikTok has Lemon8. But, you take Blue Sky. What I don't understand about Blue Sky is they need one thing. They need one thing to come into the forefront. And they were talking about competing with Twitter. No, they're not going to be able to compete with Twitter until you can go on live there. If Blue Sky, I would totally switch everything over to Blue Sky if Blue Sky would let you go live. Everything else, they've got it down. And there's Tumblr. There's all of these different ones. But what I am going to do, though, is I promised a friend of mine I would do this. It's been 50 years since the Vietnam War ended, okay? I'm going to do one talk about the Vietnam War. Yes, it's rehashed. It's an old fucking subject, and most people that are dying now that were even around during it, okay? Or they're getting so old they're eating out of a tube. I'm kidding to all your Vietnam vets out there. That's not funny. But what I'm going to talk about is when that war started. I'm going to talk about the endless timeline that we went down with that motherfucker, and the drugs that were shipped in there, and then the whole hypocrisy. The one thing on a side note is I think that war helped to influence. It was part of the time to awaken the consciousness of the country and to people on all sides, and it's going to have a lasting effect like that. But that war, on a higher level, kind of a comical level, that war had to have been the biggest on so many levels, even down to people back here making money, soldiers working on the black market over there, the government. We know about the government's bullshit, right? But that war had to have been the biggest fucking hustle, all-around hustle, ever put on humanity. Not on humanity, but in humanity. It was just a hustle. I mean, everything was a hustle over there. And I heard one guy was saying, this one asshole was commenting that, well, the morale started to slip because the guys were using a lot of heroin. No, the morale kept up so long because the guys were using a lot of heroin, you dumbass. If it wasn't for that heroin over there, that cheap, really good heroin, there would have been a lot of friendly fire murders on a lot of officers, I'm sure of it, by the time tensions were escalated so high. And those kids were thrown over there in the heat of battle like that. And, and meanwhile, this prick that's saying this, right, he's the same guy that's helping the plane loads of smack being flown into where the bases were. The whole hypocrisy, it was just really deeper than anybody really imagined. So I've got all my notes. I'm going to go down the list with them. So if there's any Vietnam vets out there, if you grew up during the war, I was talking to my dad about it the other day, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, Dad, did that fucking thing ever seem like it was going to end? It really started in 1955. It really ramped up in the early 60s, but we were over there for fucking ever and a day, and time moved slower back then. I don't care what anybody says, it moved slower, at least, probably 4 seconds slower a minute on time-wise, not second-wise as far as we think it's time, but as far as the time that actually took to go through it. So things were really slow, And man, that war must have, I mean, like I said, it took my parents from learning their ABCs to fucking pushing almost 30. I mean, so that motherfucker was all, it never ended. It's still going on in some people's minds that are from that era. It never ended. But yet at the same time, we get kind of caught up in nostalgia, like, oh, it separated people at the dinner tables and it was a fight in the family. Yes, all that shit happened. It's very true. Yeah, I mean, like on all the show, All in the Family, of course. But the majority of people then, like now, the majority of the people were busy with raising kids and leaving, or working a career, getting through school, going about their day-to-day lives. And it wasn't that they were trying to ignore the war; they had no choice. I mean, times were tough, back then, and you had to do what you had to do, like they are at any time. But people weren't all obsessed about it. Most people I talked to were really just, they weren't really into it. I mean, they were too busy to be into it. They didn't have the time to be into it. But yeah, there was that drama where it divided people at the dinner table. Well, yeah, sure, but that wasn't every fucking house in America, right? To most people, it was just background noise. But at the same time, it was a big fucking deal because everybody that grew up in that era lost somebody to that war. We went to school with people that were killed in that war, like at will, and especially when you people that graduated like my parents did in the mid and late '60s, right? I mean, it really ramped up around. I mean, it really got bad before it started to kind of turn the tide. 68 was a bad year for fighting, terrible. And it just escalated, and so everybody lost somebody to that war that was special to them in some way, right? But as far as their day-to-day thinking about it, it wasn't everybody obsessed about it, unless you were, watching the news, and which the news back then would show, of course, what was going on. It wasn't the same day because it took a couple days to uplink shit back then. They didn't have satellite technology yet until the early 70s. So things had to be uplinked, and so it took a few days. So you were getting Dan Rather, reporting, because he was out in the field back then, and Walter Cronkite was in the studio. Or if it was over on NBC, you'd be watching probably, what the hell was it? It was before Broke. I could see him just as clear as day. It wasn't Brinkley or Huntley. It was, oh fuck, I know, I really liked him a lot, and I liked him so much I can't remember his name. But I'll probably remember it at some point. But, they would be talking about the war and where we were advancing on or where we weren't advancing on. And, another day of fighting, another day of shelling, another day of, that war was the first proxy war ever fought in our incarnation. Oh, the first proxy war where it was, two different sides were backing the two combatants, the South and the North, with the Russians in the North and us in the South. But America, America has a lot of fault for that war because the North Vietnamese actually came to the Americans at first and wanted our help to help set up a government. And we thumbed our nose at them. We just said, fuck it, no, we thumbed our nose at them. But then when they went to the Russians, then we thought, oh, hold on, not so fast. Well, we got to save face. In the meantime, there was all this, everybody came up with a hustle. Right, we can, the weapon supplies. We spent, the way I have it calculated that we know of, and this isn't black budget, so for there's who knows what that is, but that they're willing to admit that war cost us $5 million a day at least, and I'm talking about nowadays that would be about a $50 million a day war that they're talking about. That doesn't have anything to do with any of the side hustles going on, the black market trade going on over there, all the dope. It wasn't even just that they were buying dope. The shit was being flown in for these soldiers. Really, I mean, it was being flown in. Hey man. And at the same time, the guy flying it in was like, fuck, man, these guys are really getting high on that shit. And, well, yeah, because it was dirt cheap. I had my dad's best friend died over there, stepped on a landmine. He came home 3 times. 3 times he came home, and he went back voluntarily. He could have stayed home any of those times. He was hurt. He could have stayed. He was done. But he went back over there because the heroin was too good. It was only 5% pure here then on the streets. It was 95% pure over there, and it was dirt fucking cheap. Right? I mean, it's so cheap that you could get it given away to you. Right? It was just so dirt cheap, and when you get hooked onto that H, man, when you get hooked on that smack, man, it doesn't matter where you're at. Everything can feel good. Right, and so it was just it's all over with, man. I can imagine how pure and good that heroin is, and there were some units that they say were, as much as 35% of the guys were on it, and people say, "Oh, that's a high number." No, I believe it. I believe it. If you know somebody who says they weren't over there, well, they probably weren't, but they're in denial about how bad it was. They just were probably the barracks narc that nobody wanted to tell. But yeah, everybody's getting high on that shit, and anybody that wasn't getting high on it over there was stupid. I mean, honestly, in that scenario, I mean, Mr. Tough Guy, it gives you a little bit of heaven and a hell environment, right? And when you got nothing left to lose like that, so it's no wonder that all the problems coming back. And I think a lot of the problems too is the shit the guy saw over there, that unimaginable horrors and tragedies and shit that those young kids had to see over there. But on top of that, coming back a lot, I'd be curious to know the number of people that had to detox off that shit when they came back over here. And you never get over it. You never get over a heroin addiction that bad. You learn to cope with it. If you're not on Suboxone or something like that, you learn to cope with it, right? You do learn to cope, and there's life afterward, but you're never quite the same, because you can never, that high like that. And once you get high on it so many times, it really fucks with your endorphins, right? It kind of numbs them to where nothing really pleasurable. You can still have natural pleasures, but it's never the same again. It's never the same again. Once you've really been into that, and whether it's painkillers is heroin, it's opiates. There's a lot of stupid fuckers out there that still don't realize that. I mean, it's not that it's a bad or a good thing. It's opiates or opiates, and I'm for every drug being legal. I'll get that right out there. Only it's none of your fucking business what somebody else does. If they're doing something with it and giving it to a minor, well, it's the same problem you'd have if they were feeding them with booze all day long at home, and that's legal. Okay, this shit should be controlled. Yes, they tried it. They tried to decriminalize it in some American cities, but these are still homeless people that they're not put in a nice environment to where they have the ability to, take a nice their clean dose of their medicine, and it is their medicine. They need that shit as much as a diabetic needs an insulin hookup, probably more in some cases. In fact, more in a lot of cases. Right, they need that at that point, and you can't blame them for, they're the one that chose to use it. Well, that diabetic, unless they were born with it, that motherfucker's the one that chose like a dipshit to go eat a bunch of sugar, and he wasn't even getting high off of it, so who's the dumb fuck, right? So it's judging other people, and they chose to get high one time. I know, God forbid, they wanted to escape reality, or they were just at a party and decided to try it and really loved it. Oh God, I know. I mean, it's that evil thing, because we all know that when they chose to get high that first time, right, we all know that it was with the intent of fucking their family over, and I'm just gonna do this because it's gonna piss them off. Some people say that I'm doing this to my old lady pissed me off. I figured I'd go out and buy a 20 bag and cluck it up, right? Which we used to call clucking it, smoking it, if you don't know what that is. Of meth, or whether meth or coke or whatever, or crack. They chose to do that, so that's what they get. Well, meanwhile that person's a food addict or has their own little addiction, but it's okay. They can't. Let's see them go without their 25 pots of coffee a day and their 5 packs of cigarettes, right? My grandparents were the biggest hypocrites that way ever. All those damn hippies smoking that pot, those weirdos, that stuff will cook your brain. Meanwhile, these people would get up in the middle of the night to have coffee and cigarettes, right? And the Valium and whatever, man. Tranks and ups and downs and ins and outs and downs and arounds and back again and everything under the sun, right? But all those people are hooked. Now, what's scary would be scary is to see, people like that go without their cigarettes and coffee for a couple of days. They might realize, they're an addiction. But then they'd still be in this denial. Like back then, they would have still been. If it even got to that point, they would have been like, well, they didn't know in my day. They just didn't know. They put it upon us. They didn't know. We didn't know. So they didn't know because you didn't know. They didn't know. So it's okay. But because those other people knew, right, or should have known, that makes all the difference in the world. Why? Because and meanwhile, the whole methods that you tried to tell them that it was bad under were just so simple and unexplanatory. Like, don't this stuff. This is your brain. This is your brain on drugs. If you're my age, you'll remember the 1980s commercials. All it did was make us go get high. From my crew, I mean, we would have just said no, but we were way too busy saying yeah, way too busy for that shit. And it may have been a different story had people been real. I'll give you a story. My the big drug education counselor for the junior high and high school, He was also a teacher at the junior high, but he was also a teacher at my elementary school. And then before I went to junior high, he moved over to junior high, and I had him there at the junior high. Right, so this guy was the biggest anti-drug dude ever, or so he said. But he always wore long sleeve shirts, and the mood swings this motherfucker would have, we laugh about it to this day. I'm not gonna out him and tell his name, but he would one day he would be the biggest prick cocksucker over any little thing you could imagine, looking at him the wrong way. Oh man, dude, and he was a big, intimidating man. And he also, the very next day, he'd be the most gushy, goofy, fucking weirdy, like campy kind of a person you could ever imagine. Just like, and oh, hey, like that, like he's high as a fucking kite. And well, it turns out he was. But I gotta get, he maintained his heroin habit all those years, man. I don't know what he was doing to do it. He was on a teacher's salary, but yeah, the long sleeve shirts, man. And he was an okay guy when he was in a good mood. I liked him. I thought he was cool as hell when he was cool, but then he was a prick. But he was always coming up with these one-liners like, "Oh, all you got to do is kids just say nope to dope." I mean, you couldn't make this shit up, really. This would be the ultimate script of a phony, 1980s kind of a, oh, just say nope to dope. Like that works. Just say nope to dope. Well, that's certainly more witty than just saying no. So just saying nope to dope. No, but I'll have my 25 martinis and my cigarettes and my, all that shit. But it's kind of, it's good to see that we're coming into a more enlightenment state. I know it don't look like it in the news, and all that bullshit, but everything for a reason, right? It is what it is. I have no opinion on that, and I used to be the biggest political guy there ever, you could ever imagine in the mainstream. Right, literally. I won't go into who I knew and what I knew, or who I'd worked for, but it just doesn't exist in my world anymore. I mean, it exists because I'm not stupid. I know that the fucking decisions some of these motherfuckers make could down the road affect me. I get all that. I'm aware of it. That's what it is. It's not giving all your energy to it. I'm fucking very aware of it. But I've seen all this play out. Now, if something happens that it's never happened here before, I don't know, fucking we get hit with a nuclear bomb, of course, different story, but I've seen all this before. Everything going on now I've seen. This is nothing new at all, really, just a new twist on it, more intense. The population dictates what kind of leadership or what kind of how they act. It doesn't matter what party it is, but I mean, it kind of acts what they, it dictates how they behave themselves, right? So it's kind of just in people that are more into that kind of the 3D lifestyle are the ones that are into that stuff. So it's it manifests that way, right? It's more like drama because they're used to having, they don't have just a couple channels on television no more. They've got, an endless number of television stations to tune from, right? And different kinds of programming and different kinds of drama. Each reality show has to top the next reality show, right? So each pro wrestling skit has had to outdo the other pro wrestling skit, right? And it's got to the point where it's just gotten, weird. I mean, even soap operas got to the point where they were having, fucking spells put on people and weird, getting into really crazy shit because you can only do it so long. I mean, it's so many decades. You can only tell the same story so long, and it works forever. Hey, it works for a long motherfucking time to do that. A long time. But then eventually consciousness shifts, the conversation turns, and so something new has to be brought, right, to get people, it's like old school pro wrestling. You have a big 6-month feud, and then it all, it comes down to this big boiling point, and then, nothing really got solved, because then the next week it starts all over again with another person, and then, this happened, this, because you got to keep it going, right? You can't, there's never going to be, and such is life though too, in your journey through ascension and journey through lifetimes, nothing ever is complete. You get another book, right? You just turn the chapter, there I go, on the stage again, turn the page, as Bob Seger would say, or some bullshit like that. Yeah, turn the page. Yeah, really. And that's what happens, right? You don't, the inbox is never empty, and I don't say that to make people feel like they got to be bogged down, right? I say that because it isn't, right? There's always a new journey. You say, well, what could possibly be left to achieve? Well, a society that everybody has what they need, and everybody has endless supply of food, water, and medicine, and shelter that they need. What could anybody want to do in a society like that? Well, what could anybody want to do is start to actually live, right? That's when a society actually starts to live. That's when a society actually starts to evolve and move around and transform, is when everybody's taken care of like that, right? That's when, that's not, oh, everybody will want to do nothing. No, that's not how it works. That's not how it works. That's not exactly at all how it works. And if there's a few people like that, well, good, support them, let's take care of them. Yeah, I mean, really. And like with the drug problem, if we really were serious about getting rid of it, or you'll never get rid of it, or minimizing it, legalize it completely, in a couple generations it'll dwindle down. And then more medicines will be created, like Suboxone is, to help actually get in the brain chemistry and maintenance dose that'll, help you, and eventually at your own pace, not at a fucking doctor's discretion, you'll wean down off of it naturally, right? That's how Suboxone kind of works, but it takes years. It takes years sometimes. And the people that say Suboxone don't work, they're not using it right. One big mistake happens with them is that they're not given enough of it. And there's only so much of it you can take. Like 4 8 milligram tablets is all you can take more, but it's not going to do anything worth a shit to you, because it stuffs your opiate receptors. 3 of them is really just about good enough. But 4, if you're really hardcore on it, I would suggest, though, as hard as is detox, you better, I would suffer it out with shakes for about 8 hours, maybe as many, not more, but maybe as many as 24 before then you pop that versus Suboxone, because then it'll really help, and it'll really start to kick in, and you'll be able to start to live again, right? And not be, because when you're hooked on an opioid, it's terrible, man. I mean, your body is just, it's the worst thing you could go through. But we can't sit there and go, oh, they chose to use it, that's what they chose to do, well, yeah, well, you chose to fucking go jerk off in the bathroom. I mean, really. And you knew you weren't supposed to. You knew you were going to grow hair on your palms if you did that, so they said. Yeah, I mean, the pleasure police are always out in full force, but the pleasure police are the first ones that want to have some pleasure. Yeah, I mean, we always look at people that want to feel good like they're losers, right? I mean, it's this hitting dichotomy. We do the same thing with sex in America. Oh, God, don't do that. Be careful. Don't do any of that crap. Don't do that fool around as a teenager when you're really horny. Don't experiment. Don't do any of that stuff till you're married. But hey, here's this magazine in the corner. Here's this movie. They don't look at it like that in Scandinavia. They fuck like rabbits. It's from what I know and from people I've talked to. A lot of them do when they're younger, but they don't really get into hard drugs. Maybe now it's different because a lot of America has, we've lovingly influenced the rest of the world a little bit in our loving, positive ways. But the teenage pregnancy in those days, though, when that was going on, was like 10% what the United States was, because they didn't have to hide it. And it's always these parents, though, that are surprised that they were fucking around when they were kids. And it's like, well, I've told people, I said, but your stupid ass was fucking around in the back seat of a car, and you're a dumb shit, and your consciousness level is in the toilet compared to your kids. Why wouldn't you think your kids, who are 20 times more in tune with consciousness, just because that's how it goes, why wouldn't you think they would want to feel good and experiment that? Because, see, they're looking at it from a kind of a spiritual standpoint. You weren't. You were just looking at it as some, horny teenager out fucking around. Or whatever, of being stupid, versus how they were. And that's how I got to put it to people, man, that act that way. Now, if it's all about their reaction to finding out their kid has a drug problem or finding out their kid's pregnant. To me, their reaction to it dictates how I will be to them, and it's either only one of two ways. It's really like nasty to them about it, or it's really lovingly and caring. They're just, if it's a concern, complete just concern, not a, oh my God, the fucking sky is falling, but I did the same thing. Or either they did the same thing, or they were so clueless that nobody would have invited them to anything because they were probably a snitch. And that's just real talk, man. That's just real talk, and that could just be from my experience with life, right? But I mean, I would challenge you that if you were like offended by anything I said, that go take a look in the mirror. That's what I do when I get offended by something and I hate it. I go take a really good look in the mirror, not literally, well, sometimes, because I'm in love with myself, but that's another story, okay? I will go do that, and I'll think about, well, what is it about that's irritating me, right? And then I'll break it down. I'll be like, okay, yeah, and that is true, they got a good point. And then I look at what is the person's MO for saying that shit. Typically it's something arrogant on their part, so hopefully with our two arrogant selves together, we can figure this all out together, and realize that we're the same thing. We're just the same piece of fiber that was started the whole thing that never did start, because in the beginning, people, there was nothing. But then from nothing came something. But there was never nothing, because there was always something. It just kept manifesting and manifesting all over again, right? Time is so old that you couldn't spit out the digits, digit by digit, in a whole lifetime, but yet it just happened a split second ago. How it flows. But anyway, I got to get going. I've got to I don't know. I got to go do something. I think we got to go to a commercial break. Yeah, we got to go to a commercial break and hear a word from our sponsors. By the way, if you would like to sponsor the program, you can. You know what I mean? I have no problem, because I spend about 16 hours a day doing this and doing stuff on Facebook not for people, but I like to do it. But yeah, man, I'm not opposed to taking donations if you want to send $1. A lot of times what I'll do with people is, if somebody's really enlightened and I can help them move forward, I'll do it, and I don't expect anything in return, just the gratitude showing, watching them grow. But if somebody hits me up with 55 questions, and it happens all the time, right? And they keep going, and I'll answer a bunch of them for them. But what I'll do, if at some point, and this is where my ignorance comes in. It took me so fucking long to figure this out. Okay, to stop the onslaught from them, the particular person, right, in a loving way. It works. It's beautiful. I say to them, I want $1. I want $1 one time from you. I want $1 one time from you. You know how to work this shit, because you go onto Amazon all the time, and I'm sure you buy shit for yourself. It'll take you 20 seconds to go to my Cash App or PayPal. It's more secure than Amazon by far, even according to the CIA. And go donate $1 to me. Let's see if you got that energy transfer. And I'd even ask for a quarter, but you can't send less than $1 on those apps. I don't think. And one of them you can't for sure. I don't know about the other, but regardless, I would just want to see that all my time for you that we spent with these 30 questions, and the more that you're going to have, is worth you paying $1 for. And if not, I understand. I understand that, but that's just where I'm coming from. It's an energy transfer. So you'd be surprised how many people that shuts out. And it's just that they were just fucking with you to begin with, because if a kid in Ethiopia come up with $1, okay, on a card, and trust me, you wouldn't be able to be sitting there, even on somebody's internet, doing that and asking me all that shit that long if you didn't have $1 to your name, right? So that's the whole thing, and that's why I just asked for $1, because it proves that they're interested or not interested. And then most of the time, if they say, yeah, I'm kind of low on money right now, I'll say, that's fine, it wasn't about that anyway, I don't want that from you, I'll answer your questions. That's fine. It wasn't about that. It was just to see if you would. But I would never turn anybody away for that, ever. If they were honest and admitted to me they didn't have it, that's all they'd have to tell me. But sometimes they'll just flake off, and those are usually the people that are, they're just in their own world still and wanting to know. They're wanting me to humor them, right? And I do, And if I had the time, I'm an idiot. If I had the time, I'd do it. I'd do it all day long with them, like an idiot, for nothing, for free, for nothing. And it isn't about expecting any, but it is, okay, but it is. People are weird about money, and it isn't about saving their money or being careful. When I say weird, don't get it twisted. It's not about being careful with your money or not being careful with your money. People are really fucking strange with it. Now, I'll give some stories another time, but yeah, one of them had to do with I was going to do about, let's see, 2 hours on air, and then another probably 12 doing shit and circulating shit, right? So about 14 hours. And so it all came down to this: I wanted $1 up front for it all, and they couldn't do that. And they couldn't even do it after the show. They had to wait till everything was over. It was and I didn't even want any money to begin with, but they stood me up like 5 times, and they said they'd give me 20 if I would give them one more chance. And I said, okay. I wasn't even going to say no, and I said, okay, well, I'll tell you what, I'll take 10. Why don't you give me 10 down, though? Oh, no, I can't do that. And I cut this person down to $1, and I even thought about going up to a quarter, just to see, but no, they went into these hysterics. People are fucking bizarre with it. It's just like this. It's one thing if you are a CEO of a big Fortune 500 company and you're a prick, right? Those guys, those assholes, corporate muckety mucks, right? But it's one thing if you're that way with something like that. And it's another thing, too. You'll get people that act that way as a manager at a fucking goddamn pencil stand. You know what I mean? That'll think they're hot shit like that. I mean, it's one thing when you really are at that upper level, even though it's not cool. But it's one thing. It's just like it's one thing when you're a narcotics officer, and it's one thing when you're a street snitch. I don't like either one, to be honest, and I was a cop for a while. You don't, but one of them's official and the other one's not. That's the only difference. It's a matter. It doesn't make either one of them right. But one of them's a snitch and a bitch, and the other one is, you know what he's up to. You know what I mean? But he went through the training. So anyway, I'm out. Rocken Locken 1212 in the house, and now I got to figure out how to get out of here. I'm so smart. Yeah. Okay, and there, and then I got to end Instagram. Oh man, Instagram is a fucking drag though, but I gotta use Instagram because it tapes my shit. So does TikTok, but it's a little more complicated. Instagram, I can get it all in one shot, and it's free. So that's the only motherfucking reason I'm on Instagram, is because this broadcast now I can tape it. Of course, I'll have to break it down into two spots to go live for 20. They want me to go live for 20 hours, but yeah, that's the only reason I'm on Instagram. Instagram's kind of a dead weight. It's not like TikTok is much better. TikTok has got a bad rep for I don't know, God knows why. You want to see something that it's really liked, that people that are not on TikTok, and there's a lot of paranoid motherfuckers that are not on TikTok. I'm trying to get my co-host Carolyn. I know, I don't care if she hears me. I mean, she knows I'm on her ass all the time to get on there. She's losing money by not being on there. It's more of a quantum. The Pleiadians talk about quantum computing. Well, TikTok's about as close as that as we've got. It's more of a interaction completely, like you're scrolling down through shit and the videos pop up of what's going on, the live's going on. It's not just to click this link and go into it, right? It's more interactive. Instagram's got a little bit of that, but it's still stale. It's kind of like Tumblr, and it's kind of like even a lot of the other ones are still like analog writing. I feel like I'm using a typewriter versus a word modern day word processor. But TikTok, the one bad thing about TikTok is it's gotten really, people must be sniffing burlap if they think anything goes on there. By a long shot, people, TikTok is the most fucking censorship-oriented platform there is now. They must have got paranoid when they got shut down for a day here. They're the most censorship, and I use them all for my social, for my brand, not to socialize so much. I use the Pleiadians Rainbow Orbs page to do what socializing I do. But I'm telling you, TikTok by a fucking long shot. Lemonade too. TikTok is Lemonade on TikTok. I like them both, but they're many times more censorship oriented than Instagram or Facebook. Many times over. And there's still a lot of weirdos out there that think that TikTok is I don't know what they think. They're going to get the heebie-jeebies. You can't see anything bad on TikTok unless you go looking for it. You have to go out of let me tell you something, this weird stereotypes you might have heard about TikTok, you'd have to literally go out of your fucking way to find them. Because when you get onto TikTok at first, you get onto a main screen and you may see something from somebody, I don't know, you don't like, but you click on your profile right away. I mean, I don't give a fuck if you have to see what the most horrific scene you ever seen for a second. Just click on it, get out of there, and then you're into your area. And the only thing you're going to see is your friends' posts, and sometimes their posts maybe, but I mean, I don't really know, because I don't really fuck around like that with it. I look a little bit, but you have to go looking for anything evil on TikTok. You do. I gave the example just a little bit ago, the one time I saw something weird, and it was just some dude jumping around with yellow trunks and goggles on, yelling in the house. That's it. Other than that, I don't know what. The impression that people were giving me before I got on TikTok, after I quit doing radio for 5 years and came back, was that somebody could get on there and get up on a table and start going wooga 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 or whatever, and doing some kind of weird twerk and make money from it, and that's all that TikTok was. So it got boxed in like that, right? And then I get the impression now, a lot of people still think it must be something like that because they're afraid to get on there, and I don't know what the fuck for. I think they're afraid to I don't know, but Instagram is the fucking complete doldrums compared to TikTok. It's the complete doldrums. It's maybe if I was, hey, at 144 likes, check it out, I got 144 likes. Wow, 144, which is a endless number of different things. It's not just 100. See, again, there we go with 144 souls. 144 souls, man, that's all it is. 144 souls. It's not 112 of this, 12 of that, 12 of endless things. It's not 144 of 144. And if they wanted to box it in like that, my calculations, My calculations have that number at about 144 million when it's all said and done, right? If we were going to go down that road. But I don't think that, but there's so much more to it. But if we were going to play their little game, they're even wrong. I do that with the Bible too. Bible's bullshit, but for historical purposes, if it really were true, you look at Chariots of the Gods with Eric von Däniken, he had it dead on. If that motherfucker was true, he had it dead on to how it would have went. That wasn't a star the wise men were following, it was a spaceship. Of course it was. And if Mother Mary was artificially inseminated, no motherfucker with a wand from the clouds waved. Well, maybe they did because they probably had the technology to beam that kind of stuff into her, right? To an embryo or whatever, right? But that's so sacrilegious to say. But why in the fuck would it be sacrilegious? These same people are these same, because by nature they're anti-abortion nuts. So they're all, their friends are having artificial insemination probably to have kids that can't have kids, but the thought that Mother Mary was, so it's more acceptable to believe that some motherfucker with a wand got out there with a wand and waved the wand. If you're going to believe any of those religious texts, I'm not for any of them, but the Quran actually talks about afterlife, and the Quran and the Quran will tell the same kind of stories though about the deluge and things of that nature, and the Quran will talk about those things a lot more openly and honestly without, there's some dogma in there, of course, with every religion, but they talk about it a lot more honestly, with the flying vimanas and shit like that. Oh my God, the Bible, no, there's no, this pastor was like telling me, well, I've never heard the Bible mention anything about extraterrestrial. I said, motherfucker, everything in that motherfucking thing is extraterrestrial. What are you talking about? The guy, those that came from the sky, the Nephilim, they came from the sky. Well, they weren't from the fucking planet, right? I guess not. Well, yeah, they're extraterrestrials. What do you think they came from? The heavens. The heavens is the fucking other planets and the stars, man. Other dimensions. It's not some fucking place you go that's... Well, and maybe it is, too. It is both, but some place with gold brick roads and, your reward. It's not about a reward, it's just because that kind of a society is that colorful and that ascended to them, where they're at that point. It's a crystalline society. It's not, somewhere you get to go when you've been good and when you've decided to worship the Lord God as your whole life. Oh, my Lord of all, Lord of all, Lord of all. What I was talking about with Carolyn there was about in the 1980s, I used to fuck around on the shortwave radio a lot before the internet. And a couple times late at night, and it was either from the UK, and if it wasn't, it was from New Zealand or Australia. But this man and this woman, I picked them up a couple times, and this would go on for about 10 minutes, 20 maybe, at least 10, and that's a long time, right? The woman would start off with, "Oh, my Lord of all lords," and then the man would pipe back in with, "Oh, my Lord of all lords." A woman back again, same mantra. "My Lord, my lovely Lord of all lords." And this would go on for 10 minutes, and it was like these two were trying to top each other. "No, my Lord of all Lord. In these semantics, and it went on, and it went on, and it went on, and it went on. "Oh, my loving Lord. My loving Lord. No, my loving Lord." People, you can't make this shit up. Really. And I've tried YouTube. I've tried to find a copy of that on some old shortwave tapes people have had. Where in the fuck it came from. Nobody's ever heard of it that I've asked. I've even asked people that grew up back in the 80s, maybe from the UK or somewhere, if there was a fanatical group that sounds like it would be. But my Lord of all lovely Lord. It went on, and I picked it up a couple more times through the squelchy shortwave, but or the Russian. I loved when I'd pick up the Russians sounding like Americans. It's such a straight, monotone American voice, but then it didn't take long to catch on that, that motherfucker ain't using any American slang, even that some old duffer would use that doesn't know anything hip here. Just a monotone. Obviously, he went to Coquille. The word's hard for me to say. There's a couple words hard for me to say. Synthesizer is one of them. I used to say synthesizer. Coquillism schools, where they teach you this shit, how to have talk with another accent. And that's what it was. The Cold War was alive and well on the shortwave radio, man. I remember hearing it live. Or shit out of some wet Eastern European country that sounded American, but they start talking bullshit like, your major sports leagues have all can't, do not tune into the game this weekend because the leagues have all canceled. The leagues have all been canceled. They've all went bankrupt. Yeah, overnight. You know, a multi-billion-dollar industry. Then overnight it went bankrupt. Yeah, yeah. You know, I mean, shit like that. But dude, you know, hey man. Sometimes when people's only access to it is that. Yeah, I met a guy who was his dad was stationed in West Germany during the Cold War in the late '70s, and he picked that up on the radio. They were camping, him and some high school friends that you know parents were in the military there. They went camping. They were like 11 miles out of out of the East German border, right? And they picked that fucking they picked that up on the radio. Yeah, oh your sports leagues have been canceled. And they'd probably do the same thing with a British voice too. Piping into I don't know, hacking into the BBC maybe, and telling them, oh, your soccer's been canceled. Manchester United is bankrupt. Liverpool, Leeds, they're all bankrupt now. Yeah, overnight, right? And just all of them. But they would say that kind of shit, and they would also try to stop our radio broadcast from going into Russia. How they would do that was they would, and I wish I still had TikTok on, I would explain this to them, how they would jam our signals, their frequencies. They would play, what they would do is they would take a record, okay, and we're talking about playing a record backwards. They'd take a record, they would play it backwards, all right? Then, to sure it up, they'd take another record, play it backwards, and overlay the two motherfuckers, and send that signal out there to, on that same, broadcast it over that same frequency. So all you were hearing was, it would probably sound like the Palladians when they're trying to talk to me, or the Lyrans. Like, real tongue sounding, not some fucking person at a, church that's, half out of their mind going, oh my Lord, oh my Lord, oh my Lord of all Lord of all Lord of all Lord, oh, that's what I respect about the Muslim people, though. They are really, with their faith, they they do it out of gratitude. The most of them I met, they wanted it. They're not in it for a for a fucking Sunday night or a Sunday morning, a little Sunday morning blowjob. Well, they might like that too, but they're not in it to go to church to get their ego stroked and told how great they are, and then okay, they can be fucks the rest of the week, and then it's about really living what you do, right? Yeah. But see, but it'd be okay. See, here's the hypocrisy comes in. It's okay for these fucking white people over in wherever the fuck they were out to sit there with my Lord of all, lovely, 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 lovely. Yes, he's the loveliest Lord. He's the most jealous, loving, perfect piece of shit of a puke Lord ever. But if it were a Muslim gentleman or woman that was, imagine one of them were to be caught on tape going, oh, my olive, my olive. Can you imagine? They wouldn't act that way, but can you imagine the fucking, the scrutiny it would get? Oh, it'd be fucking terrible. But anyway, I'm going to go, that God in the heavens, we're all God. We're all that part of that creation, that creator, right? We've had ascended masters and stuff like that, but fuck them, they're old. I love them, but they're retired. Jesus, Muhammad, Buddha, Allah, Thor, the Vikings, all those people, dude, they're ancient. They're sold now. They're comic book characters to me now, and they're old. They were there, but they're gone, and now it's our time. It's not the golden age; it's the rainbow and the blue age now, and the purple and the green and the yellow and purple and green. I mentioned all that. Okay, but you know what? I told this one person. They said that God's gonna get you. He's coming back. Oh Jesus is coming back. Oh, is he coming? Yeah, well, he's on a slow leaky raft from Antarctica right now, and he's using Scotch tape to paste up the raft as he's coming here. But he's getting here. And what does that even mean, though? I mean, like it's, he's coming. You better be careful. He's coming. Well, what? Big Daddy's coming. Oh, yeah, turn off the TV. It's late. Yeah, Big Daddy's coming home, and anybody still up is going to get 5 lashes with a big stick and be grounded for 5 days or 5 weeks, or for eternity, really. Yeah, I mean, really? I mean, somebody says that to me, I say, well, great, fuck, man, that's all. You got a date on that? When's he coming back? Oh, he's coming back. You better. Why would I need to be careful about what? I mean, what the fuck? Break out the hats and Hooters when Jesus comes home. Yeah, all that shit's ridiculous, dude. We got his teachings. That's what it's about. If it's old. They're old and retired, man. They're retired. It's our time now. And besides, if that God existed on the etheric plane, just like if Lucifer did, same thing. I told this lady, I said, if either one of them existed, they don't want any part of me. I'm a light warrior. I said, first thing I'm going to do if that God exists, There'll be a judgment day. I'll get called into judgment day. Oh, I'll get called into judgment day, and first of all, I'll get that fucker to admit what a fraud and a fake and a phony and a liar he is. And then I'm going to walk right up to him, and I'm going to hit him with a right, left. He'll be toothless. And then he'll say, God damn, kid, you're ruthless. I'll pull a Muhammad Ali on him. I'll go even one better. And that's what I told her I would do to him. I said, you know what? It ain't going to stop there. I'm going to challenge him or Lucifer to a boxing match on the etheric plane. I used to box little Golden Gloves. On the etheric plane. And here's what I'm going to do. Okay, it's going to be a 9-round boxing match. And you know what? It'd be just fine if I had to knock his ass out in 9. It'd be really great if I'd knock him out in 8. He wants to go to heaven so bad, I'm going to knock his ass out in 7. He'll be in a worser fix if I have to fuck him up in 6. He keep talking all that biblical bullshit jive, I'm going to knock him out in 5. He calls another woman a whore, I'm going to knock him out in 4. Now listen, he keep fucking with me, he'll go down in 3. If that don't do, I'll kick his ass in 2. If he tries to run, I'm going to knock him out in 1. If he don't want to fight, he better keep his ass home and off the etheric that night, because Big Lair's got a brand new Pleiadian 45, and I won't think twice but to stick it straight down that fucker's throat. Believe me when I say I got something for both their punk asses. So that's just what I tell. I mean, I'm not into comic book characters. But keep in mind, this is coming from a chick who I had to get rid of as an admin. She was dating Lucifer for a while, but then she was heartbroken because Lucifer was cheating on her with Lilith was the name. Now this is my patheticness to get to know this like a soap opera, but this was my life for a while, hearing this shit every day. And then but she found the new love of her life. She was dating not somebody from Orion, but she was dating the Orion star system. And I thought to myself, yeah, that's just the perfect star system she ought to be aligned with. A little bit of that arrogant Lyran in me. But really, it's not the Orion's fault. Really. They were taken over by Draco. But, then she found somebody in particular up there, but she was dating the star constellation for a while. I thought, man, that's quite the cosmic gangbang, y'all. But on that note, I digress, and I'm out, and it's Rocken Larry Locken 1212. And I'll holler at you in a minute. Am I still live? No, I'm not live. Oh, I am live. I'm live. He's alive. Flash! He saved every one of us. Okay. Yeah, the longer you're there, the later it gets.